A Times investigation, which Andrew's been in charge of, accuses a British-based Qatari bank from promoting Islamist causes. Andrew, very good morning to you. Welcome.
Good morning, Mike.
This is quite a story, is it not? Because Qatar, of course, is at the centre of all sorts of things in the Middle East at the moment, not least its kind of allied nature with the Iranians and the whole tanker business in the Gulf, the arguments that they're having with Saudi and with the UAE. This is a fascinating story about how a British bank controlled by the Qatari state is providing financial services to some banned organisations, for want of a better word.
Well, you're right. Qatar's role in the Middle East and in the Gulf in promoting and supporting the Muslim Brotherhood and various forms of political Islam, indeed allegedly supporting terrorist entities in countries like Libya and Syria is well known. Over here, this tiny emirate is probably best known for the fact that it owns Paris Saint-Germain Football Club and a fairly large chunk of London, including Harrods and the Shard.
And the Shard. And also it's going to get the next World Cup, isn't it?
It is indeed. But what we've written about today is the fact that a bank that is a British bank, an Islamic bank, headquarters in Birmingham, which is controlled by the state of Qatar, is and has been for some years facilitating the financial operation of a number of organisations of concern, organisations that in the past have had their bank accounts closed by mainstream Western banks, organisations including one that is banned in America as a terrorist entity, organisations that are under Charity Commission investigation, under Ofcom investigation, and that loosely all share the goals of Islamism and the Muslim Brotherhood, and whose aim really is to preach that Muslim citizens in this country owe their loyalty to Islam and not to the United Kingdom.
Right. And Al Rayan, the oldest and largest sort of Islamic bank in Britain, has 85,000 customers, is that right?
It does, and it's important to point out the bank is not breaking any UK law by allowing these organisations to have bank accounts, and these organisations are not banned from operating in the UK.
Right.
But we think it's a matter of some concern if banks like HSBC, Lloyds, NatWest have in the past chosen to close the bank accounts of these organisations because they consider their activities fall outside their risk appetite. If the go-to bank for all these organisations is a bank that's owned by the Qatari state, then we believe that's a matter of concern.
Yes, absolutely. Is it a case of one rule for one foreign bank and another rule for another, if you like?
Well, we may be having a follow-up story in tomorrow's paper about a different bank, which I can't give you too many details of at the moment.
We shall await with bated breath.
But this is focused very much on one bank, and I think it's an example of an area of the way a country that's not Britain can influence what is going on in Britain that perhaps a lot of us don't really take much notice of.
No, quite. I mean, my memory, sadly, because I'm quite old now, goes all the way back to the Bank of Credit and Commerce International, BCCI, and the whole kind of the Johnson Matthey banking scandal back in the 80s with Bank of Baroda in India and all of that. And the sense seemed to be back then that we needed to clean up an awful lot of the foreign banks that were in London because they were using practices which were at least unethical and possibly illegal.
Yeah, well, I suspect I'm a similar race to you, and I do remember those stories, and I do remember that when a scandal erupts, we will sit back and say, why didn't we know about this before?
Right.
And we have spoken to a number of academics and former diplomats in connection with this. Zach Goldsmith, who's just joined the government, when we spoke to him a few days before he joined the government, said this was a matter of huge concern and he was going to be raising it with the Home Secretary as a matter of urgency.
Okay. And as far as the Qataris with and British interests are concerned, I mean, we know obviously that the British government has had for a long time very close ties to Saudi Arabia, which some people get a little bit squeamish about, quite rightly. What's our connection sort of diplomatically with Qatar?
Well, Qatar is... has for some time played it both ways. I mean, Qatar is home to a giant U.S. Air Force base,
right.
At the same time as supporting organizations for whom America is the ultimate enemy. Whether that's the way they seem, the royal family, the Qatari royal family, which effectively controls everything that happens in Qatar, is seeking to ensure its own security. We don't know, but you will very clearly remember, and many of your listeners will, that for many decades it was Saudi Arabia that was culpable for the global export of Wahhabi Islam. It's now Qatar that's funding the construction of Islamist mosques all around the country, including in Sheffield. We think the public should know about this.
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. Well, it's a fascinating story. I recommend anybody to read it this morning who hasn't yet, and we should look forward to the second instalment tomorrow, Andrew. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.
Andrew Norfolk, the chief investigative reporter at The Times. These are the kinds of stories that can sometimes slip under the radar if you're not paying attention. But this is something I think that we have to be very, very careful about because, let's face it, the football season is about to get back underway. The Community Shield was yesterday at Wembley. Premier League football back underway at the end of the week. And, of course, the interests in the Middle East, from Qatar to Abu Dhabi to Dubai, all the way through to the World Cup in 2022, of course. Suddenly you find yourself thinking, well, how close are the ties between this country and Qatar, and what is going on exactly in the banking sector, and who exactly are they using their money to fund? And if there's 85,000 people who've got bank accounts with this particular bank in the UK, Al Rayan, then I think this question should be asked, and the Home Office needs to get involved straight away.